US President Joe Biden meeting Xi Jinping of China, and while it looked like the real progress that Biden called it, now Biden has thrown a dictator jibe at Xi Jinping. Joe Biden has called Chinese President Xi Jinping a dictator and added that Xi runs the communist government very different from how the US is run. Chinese President Xi Jinping and Biden chaired a key meeting, remember? And also this was what Biden called a strong real progress, but now also throwing a dictator jibe specifically at how the communist government is run in China, where we know that there is a very specific route that is taken, exactly how and what Xi Jinping and the government wants to be revealed. Even the ministers go missing. There are dissenters who are often targeted, and this is a big statement that has now come. Have already cracks started to show in these two big power rivals.
Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that we used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.
All right, so that's the big news, remember, and for a US president to be using and agreeing to the word of dictator, where he had said, this was right after a press conference, right at a press conference when he was addressing a question. And we are waiting if there is a reaction that will come in from the Chinese government too. So remember, there was this big bilateral meeting between Biden and Xi Jinping that has concluded. And while it looked like what Biden called a real progress, but there's now been a dictator jibe that has come in. It's an off-the-cuff remark. President Biden, while leaving the press conference, while answering to a question, took a jibe at Xi Jinping, calling him a dictator, agreeing to the word used. This remark could actually frustrate Biden administration's Chinese counterpart. And could there be a reaction coming in from the Chinese government? There have been long-standing disagreement over issues, for example, whether it's Taiwan, South China Sea, Israel-Hamas war, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, or North Korea and human rights that have been on issues between USA and China. Now, the leaders had reached an agreement to reopen military contacts that were cut after the House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi earlier had visited Taiwan. But this time, the two leaders met for the first time with a year-long gap in San Francisco, where this meeting took place. The first time the two leaders were face-to-face meeting in a year, coinciding with the annual summit of the 21-member Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, which is a short drive away.
Since then, key members... As you know, I just concluded several hours at the meetings with President Xi, and I believe they were some of the most constructive and productive discussions we've had. I've been meeting with President Xi since both of us were vice president over 10 years ago. Our meetings have always been candid and straightforward. We haven't always agreed, but they've been straightforward. And today, build on the groundwork related over the past several months of high-level diplomacy between our teams, we've made some important progress, I believe. First, I'm pleased to announce that after many years of being on hold, we are restarting cooperation between the United States and PRC on counter-narcotics. We're reassuming military-to-military contacts, direct contacts. As a lot of you press know who follow this, that's been cut off, and it's been very worrisome. That's how accidents happen.
Joining me on the phone line is India Today's Gaurav Sawant for the latest on that. Gaurav, when we were talking about how the two power rivals are meeting, what could it really mean? And it was significant in so many ways. But this time, literally responding to, agreeing to the word dictator could ruffle a lot of feathers, isn't it, with the Chinese government? How does one look at it? Even though many have called the Chinese President Xi Jinping a dictator, Gaurav.
Pooja, you're absolutely right, and so has Joe Biden. And the question was put to him once again. This was an off-the-cuff response where he did say that, yes, he's a dictator, considering he doesn't head a democracy like the United States of America. It's a communist party. He's one man who takes all the decisions. But China clearly will be extremely unhappy with this, considering Chinese president flew across the world to get to San Francisco for this. And the United States literally laid out the red carpet for him. But this also shows that there is massive mutual suspicion between China and the United States of of America. This is an attempted reset. They made all the right noises from Bali to the reset at San Francisco, especially on the aspect of resuming military-to-military direct communication so that the two most powerful armed forces in the world do not get into a fight like they almost did over South and East China Sea, where their military planes and warships have come dangerously close to each other. However, suspicion remains on issues like Taiwan. China wants a massive commitment that U.S. will not arm Taiwan anymore, and the U.S. will not give any such commitment. Access to high-end technology, including semiconductor chips. There are many major problems that remain in this relationship, and trust is the biggest factor that is lacking given China's actions. The U.S. actually went out of its way in past decades to promote China, but China is now undercutting the United States of America. Will the U.S. wake up to it in the right earnest? Of course, remains to be seen. How much will they accommodate China in the days and months and years ahead? Again, remains to be seen. But calling Xi Jinping a dictator once again will ruffle feathers in China, given the fact that Xi Jinping himself may be going through a very tough phase despite being president for life in China.
Absolutely, and in many ways Biden saying it as it is, but also remember that at a time when this meeting has taken place, what kind of consequences or positives could come out of it remains to be seen. Gaurav Sawant for the latest on that. Thank you very much, Gaurav. Listen into what exactly did Joe Biden say and agree to when the dictator word was used.
Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that we used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that is based on a form of government totally different than ours.